welcome to another episode of Wrestle Rewind. Tonight it's a day in November. I don't even know what date it is. But
the 21st.
It's
21st.
We're a week from Thanksgiving, folks. That's where we are. I'm your host, as always, Tommy T, joined by Double K, Amen, and Smokey Z.
Smoker.
So tonight. We're not even 30 seconds into this.
Share those to the feed.
And it's going to hell quickly.
No, it got there.
Can we
during
show
the countdown.
We gotta show the pictures.
No, we can't show the pictures.
Sure we can.
No, we can't.
What are you going to do if we do?
So,
you can't even...
Camera's right there.
So,
Go ahead, Amen.
Do it.
So
This is right before we started.
there's...
In
it's
case
funny.
you're wondering, that is Tommy T, whose chair magically slipped out from underneath him and pinned him to the floor. 1, 2, 3.
The best part is that
TM Punk.
because of the green screen, you can't see the green screen on A-Man's phone either.
Sure.
So, we got a sheet to go by.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God.
we're going to kick tonight's conversation off with no, I do. It's the Survivor Series card.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wait a minute, you worked today, right?
yes.
Okay. All right.
So, NWA,
pages.
NWA Power pulled from YouTube this week. And it was pulled from YouTube as a result of Jim Cornette's remarks with regards to their most recent episode of NWA Power. For those of you that are here that did not get to see what his comments were, take a second there and read the quote that came from him. And I'm going to quote Jim Cornette right now. His quote that stirred the controversy was he was speaking in regards to Trevor Murdoch. When he said that he's the only man I've ever known that can strap a bucket of fried chicken on his back and ride a motor scooter across Ethiopia. So,
You just can't say that.
no.
I mean,
You can.
that's really...
You can, but you gotta be behind closed doors, not on air.
You can't even do that anymore. Ask Hulk Hogan. But,
Well, that's true.
you know,
I don't know. He did get 150 mil out of that.
and he also bankrupted the company out of that.
He sure did.
So, but regardless,
You know what? I have to do it because he's a real American.
That was so great.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Perfect timing.
I'm going to stop it. I'm getting it.
Does anybody want to explain why Tommy's acting this way today?
Oh, no, I don't.
He sounded like the pig from
Don't want that
the
one.
Looney Tunes.
So,
What's the
anyways,
Porky Pig.
Porky Pig.
anyways,
Slow it down. Rewind it. Scale it.
how do we feel about Jim Cornette, who has now resigned from NWA? I'm pretty sure that was a forced resignation, but
Yeah.
I think if you keep it in its purest and simplest form, it's like Smokey just said. You just can't do that. You just can't say any of this dumb shit. I mean, what did he think was going to come out of that? I think back in the
couldn't tell
day,
you.
he got hit with his tennis racket a few too many times upside his.
Well, and I think what's also telling is the next morning, instead of apologizing or explaining it or trying to state his version of why he said it, he just went on Twitter and just said something to the effect of, "Hey, has anyone heard any good jokes lately?" or something like that. So
here's the reality of it, and I'll be the person to say it, especially right now. But what Jim Cornette said,
Just making sure.
clearly, I mean, what he said, there was no justification for it. However, if you're pointing the finger at Jim Cornette for what he said, then I think you need to look in the mirror, because there should be no surprise that Jim Cornette would say something, A, controversial, or B, remotely offensive? Because the guy has made his career out of being controversial and being offensive.
And if you
So the
hear-
fact that NWA, who records these episodes 3 weeks in advance, allowed the production to continue and make this episode available to the public on YouTube
And not-
means that Jim Cornette's not the person to point the finger at here. Billy Corgan and his folks that are sitting behind the scenes who allowed this episode to be aired,
Mhm.
knowing that it was recorded 3 weeks ago,
you couldn't even cut it out.
which means somebody approved it. Somebody said, yeah, this is good, send it to the net.
The only thing that tells me is that they're not fully watching it before they.
Well, I
before
mean,
they
it's-
go ahead.
It's Billy Corgan.
Right.
It's Billy Corgan's lack of experience in the wrestling industry and not understanding the people that he's hired.
Yeah,
Well-
but I mean, to the point of it was filmed 3 weeks ago. Even if it was filmed a damn week ago or the day before, it shouldn't matter. Somebody
Still got
has to
plenty of
go
time
through
to
that.
edit.
It doesn't matter if you understand who you've hired or not. If
Somebody should have asked a question.
if your knee jerk reaction is going to be as soon as you hear it, oh shit, we got to get this guy out of here. When you watched it or heard about it, because you can't tell me they didn't hear about this comment before. Okay, let's get it out of there. Let's get that out. Let's do something to edit that
This
out.
was a 10-second edit
You
that
can
they could
totally
have.
edit it
Well,
out.
right.
Yeah.
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 This was a 10-second edit
Yeah.
that they could have fixed, but somebody let it through.
Yes, Jim Cornette should not have said it. It is ridiculous and it's absurd. However, someone else has to be held accountable.
It can't just be him.
And what this is Jim Cornette has become the scapegoat, is where I was headed with that. Jim Cornette has become the scapegoat for this. He said it, yeah, so some people may argue with me that he's not a scapegoat because he said it. But who else is in line here? Somebody else needs to own up. Somebody needs to throw a hand up and just say, hey, I messed up.
And I think my question too is immediately after he said it, that in the moment when he said it, I forget the individual's name that he sits with, but his partner didn't think like, oh wow, that comment probably wasn't cool. To make a note to later go on and say, hey, go to Dave Lagana and be like, hey, maybe we should
We need to cut
rewatch a
Right.
certain part of this match and go over the
That
commentary.
needs to be pulled out.
Why did no one think when it was said, like, oh, crap, that's probably not cool.
Right.
You know, we should probably mark that for edit. Like, I get people are human and stuff, but, like, a comment like that is just... Especially nowadays, you know? Like, it's just, like Smokey said, you just can't say that.
Right, that's what like keeping it in its purest, simplest form.
Yeah.
You just can't do that.
Yeah, and
It's-
people shouldn't be surprised if you know anything about Jim Cornette. He makes comments like this, or he's known for things that he says. His podcast is filled with crazy remarks.
Well, and
So
the
they
sad
knew what
thing
they
is,
had, but I'm sure that they didn't expect him to just go, you know, full fledged with a
full frog.
remark.
You went
yeah.
full frog with it.
Yeah.
I think the thing, it's not the 80s anymore. The sad thing is here, if he says this exact statement word for word in 1985, 6, 7, 8, anything,
Nobody
even notices that he said anything.
wouldn't even blink an eye.
And that's the
But
sad
that doesn't
part.
make it okay.
No.
Right, that's why I literally said that's the sad part. So that was, I don't know. It should have been edited out.
I think
it made it to the air.
Right. The bottom line of it is that Jim Cornette's not the only one that dropped the ball here.
But to their credit, the second it aired, I didn't watch Power Live, so I heard about everything a few hours later. Dave Lagana, who I believe is their vice president, or he's essentially a step below Billy Corgan, he went on Twitter. They owned it. They pulled the episode completely. They are doing everything they can at this point. I'm not excusing, you know, them not
Right.
catching it, of course, but at least they're taking ownership and not just blaming it on Jim. They're saying essentially they should have caught it, and they removed the episode for it.
So they didn't pull the episode. YouTube pulled the episode.
Mhm.
YouTube pulled the episode down and notified them that
Yeah.
it had been pulled for offensive comments.
Okay.
So,
Which is surprising because I feel like there's
the
a
fact-
lot of other things
well,
on
but-
YouTube that's like
well,
how does
we've
one
talked-
comment
but
in a
we've
whole
talked
show-
about this on our show before, that wrestling fans are fickle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
So
we definitely are.
you find one thing to go after, and that's what people go after. And then if you can get a
Yeah.
bandwagon of folks of even if it's just hundreds across the board, which is a handful as far as the wrestling population is concerned, it doesn't matter. Nico and I were talking about this tonight before the rest of you got here, and that was that a lot of the times these instances, and not to their discredit, but a lot of the times what ends up happening is you have 5 people that see something that find it offensive. And then those 5 people share it on social media that they found it offensive. And then hundreds of people who have no interest in the product that they're actually talking about now jump on the same bandwagon and say, well, this is social injustice.
It's a ripple
it shouldn't,
effect.
right, that it shouldn't be allowed. And it's not to say that I'm giving credence to Jim Cornette. I'm not. What he said was wrong. It's just the fact that this is how it happens in our modern society, where you have, again, a handful of people that see something, and then those 5 people share it on social media.
Yeah.
So it went from those 5 to 500, and then those 500 people share it. Now it's 5,000, which 90% of them aren't even wrestling fans. But the fact that they found something that they equated to social injustice or inequality just spreads it. And
or
racial
negativity nowadays is popular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if they can find a way to, I'm not going to say beat the man, but if they can find a way to challenge the system,
Yeah.
to change the status quo, then that's what people will stand behind. And in an environment where we've seen the Jordan Miles incident with WWE, where he's fighting back against what he thinks is a racist organization, that type of stuff, when it happens, it's very easy. So here's the thing. When you think about this, let's think about it of what we were enjoying before we started the show. It's a fire, right? So in our
where we were headed there.
in our world, there's tons of kindling, tons of it. And all it takes is one little spark to ignite it all. Because there's already plenty of fuel. So all it takes is a spark. And that's what Jim Cornette's comment was it was a spark. So once the spark is ignited, there's already so much fuel in our society that it just spreads rapidly. So NWA Power just became the most popular wrestling program in the past week. There are more YouTube searches this week for NWA Power than WWE and AEW combined. Why?
Well, it even made TMZ.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Why?
Well, whoever.
Because bad news draws. It always has.
And the
whoever
subject-
sent that, the little clip of it in our little group message, when I watched it, I had to rewatch it because I wasn't really paying attention to what he had said. I was just kind of watching the actual match. And then it ended, and I was like, all right. Then I was like, I must have missed something, so I played it again, and I was like, oh, got it. All right.
There it is.
I mean, and again, I'm not justifying what the guy said. What the guy said was wrong. He shouldn't have said it. But that doesn't change the fact that he is someone who, and one of our viewers here actually stated, racism should be called out. Don't care of the first 5 had the balls. I'm not going to finish reading that entire quote, but only because of FCC reasons. But I agree with her 100%. If you say something that's offensive, then by all means, you deserve to be called out for it.
Well,
I think the only point that we were trying to make here is that while Jim Cornette said this, and he owns that responsibility, regardless, he owns that responsibility. He needs to own up to it. And I think I'm going to switch gears for just a second. I think that's the most disappointing part about this, is that since this has happened, we've seen he's not a member of NWA anymore, but he has still failed to come out and publicly apologize
Well, that's why I said the next
for
morning,
his remarks.
He just doubles down. He doesn't own it. He just doubles
the next
down.
morning, his tweet was like, "Hey, have you heard any good jokes lately?" or something to that effect. And like, so he doesn't see what's wrong in his statement, or he doesn't. I don't know. Like I don't know.
Was he trying to
Well,
get
I-
laugh
look-
out
in
of
his mind
somebody?
justifies
Look,
it.
here's the
Doesn't
thing.
matter.
Jim Cornette is a grown-ass man. He's been around a really long time. He knows what he said. And he knows what he said was wrong.
And there's some people that just
Come
don't care.
out, own the damn thing,
And move on.
and move on because you're already gone. Like you've done,
And he's smart. His response is going to be him on his podcast, and his podcast is
Absolutely.
going to get a crap ton
Yeah.
of downloads because everyone's going to want to hear what he has to say because we know it's going to be obnoxious. He's not going to, I'm assuming he's not going to apologize, and it's going to be something absurd, and then we'll be upset about it for a week and then move on.
if he was
That's
going
how
to,
the society is.
if he was going to
general.
apologize, he would have already done.
He would have
At this
done
point, he just
exactly.
doesn't
He
care.
would have already done.
He doesn't-
Good Lord,
It was empty.
I see that. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so
It
I
just
mean,
shows that he doesn't care.
here's
Whether he offended somebody or not.
we're gonna do a new round of things here. So one closing
Oh, Lord.
piece. Each one of us will get our own remarks as to what we want to say, our final statements on this particular subject, and we're gonna kick it off with a man. So
Which
you're this, well, the only,
Oh, got it.
the only. So we're gonna kick it off with a man and let her have your whatever it is, 30 seconds, however much you want to say in 30 seconds, of your statements on the Jim Cornette NWA Power fiasco.
I mean, I've pretty much said what I need to say. I think it's unfortunate for the show itself because he did contribute a good knowledge and a good mind for the business in and of itself. So I think it's unfortunate that we will no longer get to hear his knowledge and his take on wrestling. And I think he was a perfect fit for them, but it's unfortunate. And I hope he, sees what he does and apologizes and moves on.
Okay. Smokey Z, your 30 seconds. Last thoughts on Jim Cornette and NWA's Power.
Like we said, like if he was gonna apologize, he would have done it already. In my eyes, I guess that he just doesn't care. Like if he's offended anybody or not, it is what it is to him, I guess. So
I'm going to read another quote from one of our viewers. The statement from her was, he hasn't yet. He's been racist or sexist or negative for literal years now. Anyone who still gives him a pass for his words because he's a legend is insane. Doesn't care. Wrestling fans need not to care about him anymore.
And I'm sorry to cut you off really
No,
quick,
go
but
ahead.
I think it was Bully Ray. I'm pretty sure it's him. Or maybe it was Tommy Dreamer actually on Busted Open's show. He said, if what Jim Cornette said offends you, don't follow him. Don't listen to him. That's what you can do because you following him and you listening to him supports him.
Right,
all he
but
can
that,
say.
but that was to your point you made a minute ago. I think it was you. Like he's gonna go back to his podcast. He's gonna do the same damn thing. What you're saying,
Yeah.
and it's gonna get thousands of downloads,
for
thousands
sure.
of hits,
For sure. Because he
thousands
literally
of
said
bites.
that's what the show is going to be about. So
Yeah,
I
like
no.
everybody's gonna watch it. I agree with our listener
yeah,
that the best possible thing to do right now is just shut him off.
but it's not gonna happen.
And it might though. But
I
don't think it will happen right now.
Positive attraction or negative attraction, it's still attraction.
Because-
but I think NWA was his last chance in wrestling.
But what he's gonna do on
I'm
that
not saying
podcast,
it's not. Just
I think to further shoot himself in the foot is he's going to double and triple down on it again. He's not going to play a victim, but he's going to double and triple down on it. He's going to own it, not from a standpoint of I'm sorry I shouldn't have said
that's
it.
it.
He's
Like
going
I
to
said,
he's
it's
going to
okay.
own it from the standpoint if you don't like it, then don't listen.
Right.
And people love that, and I don't get it. There's no place anywhere for this kind of shit. Get him out of here. That's 45 seconds.
I don't care. So
You weren't even counting.
No.
He wasn't even listening.
No.
I was listening. And I agree with you. I think the message that needs to be conveyed here is get him out of here. Jim Cornette is a legendary figure, to one of our viewers' points about him being a legend in the industry. And I agree with you. I think NWA was his last chance.
Yes.
We saw the reemergence of him a couple weeks ago, or a couple years ago, when we saw him do his Hall of Fame speech for the Rock and Roll Express. And that was cool. He gave them a really good welcome speech into the Hall of Fame, but you could tell that it was a tamed version of Jim Cornette.
He was probably threatened within an inch of his life.
Probably.
If you screw this up, you're done. Like,
However,
forever.
I'm still going to go back to NWA knew who they were hiring.
It's true.
You know that you're hiring a guy that has been known for the past several years, if not half a decade, for saying things that were controversial, that were offensive, but they created and generated curiosity and engagement. And I believe that's why NWA went after him, was because of what he was going to generate in return. However, I hope that you've realized that the risk that you took for that investment did not pay off.
No, I'm afraid, and hopefully it's not, but I'm afraid now, as great as NWA Power has been, that this is it's a black eye now. Because now they're in a state of, now what do we do? What direction do we go now?
Absolutely.
Because Jim Cornette is a huge factor and a huge figure for NWA Power.
Sure.
So now he's gone. Like, immediately he's out. So
Yep.
now what do we do? There's going to be somebody. There's going to be something, but it's a void. It's unfortunate, but he did it to himself, and he recklessly did it to the company and anybody that.
At the end of the day here, I think the picture that a lot of people are missing, which is the one that Nico and I discussed before we went on the air, is I get that Jim Cornette has resigned, but I am still, and I'm going to even take the piece of Jim Cornette apologizing for his words and put that on the side plate. Where is the official response from NWA about who allowed that to make it to the internet?
Yeah, but that doubles all the way back to the beginning of the conversation,
Right.
where
Like
Billy Corgan needs to come out. Somebody needs to come out and at least own it.
Well, Dave Lagana
they've-
is the one who pretty much runs their production.
And
And, I
they-
don't want to blame him. I'm
No,
not saying that.
They've
but-
owned it.
Yeah, and he's
They've-
the one who was the first one to go out and say something publicly.
Yep.
Well, maybe not own it, but somebody else needs to be held accountable because somebody let it go.
If
And
Jim
they may
Cornette,
have been.
yeah, if Jim Cornette's the only guy that lost his job over this, then I would have, as a senior level manager in the company that I work in and have previously worked in, when something like this happens, you have to trace it all the way back to the foundation, which means somebody let it happen.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, it's not only is it a blow to him, it's a blow to the whole company.
Right.
Because
Somebody
people are
let
not-
this happen.
people are looking at like, yeah, he said this, but yeah, the company aired it and allowed it to be heard.
And this has to be something that's discussed. And to your point earlier of his counterpart on the broadcast team, like, why didn't he even speak up? It's not his job, but he
No.
does have a due diligence to do for the quality of the product to say, hey, I got a question. Right, I got a question.
Because I know if I'm
Why
sitting there,
didn't this get challenged?
right, if I'm sitting there and I hear a comment like that, I'm gonna address him after the show and be like, hey, so what you said probably wasn't the best idea, or like, maybe, it's just not in my opinion, it kind of offended me. Don't think it's the best idea going forward, blah, blah, blah. And then, especially with the amount of time that they have to produce and edit their shows, they could have very easily taken the time to go back over that brief segment of 10, 15 seconds, edit it out, called it a day, moved on. And address him and make sure that, comments like that don't occur in the future or make him resign. Whatever they wanted to do at that point, but I don't know. I don't want to say it is what it is, but I guess we'll.
I mean,
we'll
at
hear
at
from
this
what
point,
Jim
that's the
Cornette
only
said.
statement.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's the
like,
only thing we can say
I don't
right
want to say it
now.
because I don't want it to seem like I'm downplaying.
Well, I
the
think
whole
we've
situation,
had
but
a
we've
30-minute conversation
we've run
about
it into the
how much
ground
we
at this
care.
point, yeah.
And so I think at this point, if Jim Cornette really is the only one, which he's not, if he really is the only one to be held accountable, then he's gone. He's out, he's gone. They've got to recover, they've got to rebuild it, and they got to move on.
And I think they will. And I think Billy Corgan and the folks that are running that organization will do fine to find a replacement for him. There's plenty of candidates out
Oh,
there. It's just very disappointing that this could be the lasting legacy of Jim Cornette. A guy who's known for this type of stuff, that your last legacy may be that you made a racially offensive remark and you don't care, because that's the message you're portraying right now.
Well, I think that's the message, that he doesn't care, that's portrayed. So I think that's the way it is, then he's where he needs to be.
That's fair. All right, we're going to wrap up that particular segment of the program and move on to the next topic for the evening, which is going to be AEW. big news coming out this past week. Two things that Cody Rhodes managed to secure the trademark on.
Mm-hmm.
He actually secured the trademark on Dusty Rhodes, the name specifically.
Yeah.
He secured the trademark for it. And he also secured the trademark for Bash at the Beach, a former WCW moniker.
That's actually going to be an episode of Dynamite, isn't it?
It is. It's going to be
Yeah.
It's a 2-week, basically, stint.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to go down to Daytona Beach, where WCW used to do Bash at the Beach. And if you guys remember this, they used to do some spring break episodes of Monday Night Nitro, where they would have like water as part of the entranceway. Like I can
always
remember
wanted to
Raven.
I wanted to go so
Kevin
bad.
Nash doing
Kevin Nash and
Powerbomb.
Scott Hall.
Yeah. So we're going to see some sort of form of that return. Tony Khan feels very confident about the market there in Daytona Beach for them to be able to draw a good crowd. And one of those 2 episodes that they're going to feature is also going to be a Dynamite episode that is broadcast from Chris Jericho's cruise. So that's being tied into that 2-week Bash at the Beach theme for AEW. Yep, so that should be interesting. I think that might be the first time that we've ever seen wrestling broadcast on a weekly program from a cruise ship.
I can't say that I've ever seen it.
Yeah, so
We've seen it from aircraft carriers and battleships,
right, but never from
never
a
from
cruise ship.
an actual luxury cruise.
Moving forward on that, Tony Khan. I wanted to talk a little bit about Tony Khan this week and his controversial remarks with regards to
I love
Randy Orton. And I just want to pause for a
I love
second.
the Glass Houses comment.
I want to pause for
Or Jacksonville Dixie.
Yeah, that one was good. But I want to talk about real briefly here and just say my piece on Tony Khan. I've admired this guy from the start of AEW because of how withdrawn he has made himself.
Mm-hmm.
So the wrestlers will tell you he's very involved in the business, but he's been very secluded as far as the media side of dealing with wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And this past week, between him storming out of Tony Schiavone's birthday party and his comments about
I didn't hear about that.
I didn't hear about the birthday.
Eric
party.
Bischoff wrote an article about how he was attending Tony Schiavone's birthday party, and Tony Schiavone wasn't saying some critical things of Tony Khan and how he was running AEW, and about how Tony Schiavone felt like Tony Khan is repeating some of the same mistakes that WCW made, which caused...
Just imagine that conversation.
Which
Talking
caused...
to Eric Bischoff about issues that Tony Khan is making from
So
WCW.
Tony Khan, I guess, took some offense to it, stormed out of Tony Schiavone's birthday party, which the entire party, mind you, was themed around a roast of Tony Schiavone.
Right.
So it ended up causing some sort of friction somewhere along the lines with Tony Khan. He stormed out of the birthday party, did not stay till the end of the event. And Eric Bischoff made comments about it, and Eric Bischoff basically went on the record of saying, like, you gotta have thicker skin than this to work in the wrestling business.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna make it, you can't take somebody just criticizing what you're doing, then you're never gonna make it, is the point that Eric Bischoff was trying to make. And
wrestling,
so
there's always critics, no matter what.
Hell, we criticize every brand of wrestling every week on this show, so
That we do.
it's not reserved to any specific type, and we're not experts in this. We're just fans that are talking about what we see and what we think about the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I have grave concerns over Tony Khan and his transition. So take a second, look at the picture that Nico's got there of Tony Khan.
Is that Rick Moranis from Ghostbusters?
And so
That's right.
when you're looking at it, just take a second here and tell me what you see when you look at Tony Khan in that picture.
I just did. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Hey man, what do you see?
I cannot see that now.
I think he's adorable.
Y'all know this actually is a picture of Rick Moranis. It's not funny. That's actually good.
That would be funny, though. I mean, you could pass that off. In that particular picture, I'm sure, he's in mid-sentence, but that particular picture makes him look scared to death.
The kids.
Well, let me tell you what I see. I see a guy who's under a ton of pressure, who's struggling to figure out how he's going to make it work. That's what I see
Well, from this picture?
from that picture.
But what was this picture from?
So, name a time when you saw Vince McMahon sitting there with his top button unbuttoned, his tie disheveled, his hair messed up.
Okay, but when does Vince even do media?
All the time. He used to do it all the time. He doesn't do it much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I
He's kind
don't.
of old now.
So, name a time when you saw Vince McMahon. I mean,
That
when you
was
saw
probably
Triple H.
Well, Tony Khan does media after every pay-per-view. Like, he is out there and he answers questions from whoever. Like, I don't specific on websites, but like anyone who's there for media, he goes.
I mean,
out
that's
there after the show.
that right there. Yes, that's a different
So
look.
yeah, so I mean that could have been after a 3-4 hour night. I don't know. I can't make a judgment off of that picture.
I'm not asking you to make a judgment at all. I was just asking you to read that one picture.
I
Well,
think it's adorable.
Well,
I think
here we
he's-
go. Here's what, if I've got to really pick it apart, and all jokes aside, he looked tired. That's an exhausted man.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's got his hands in a lot of different things. I think what I have seen from him lately, and like I said, I didn't know about the Tony Schiavone birthday party thing
Me
until
neither.
now, but that just fits right in with what I've been thinking about Tony Khan lately anyway, and that's, I feel like he's being drawn to the light now. He sees there's more attention, and this is just my take on it. There's more attention now coming his way, and rather than staying behind the scenes where he's been, and I mean, obviously everybody knows who he is, but I think he's being drawn toward the light now. You're calling out on social media. You just took a shot yourself, the owner of the company, the guy. You just took a shot at WWE.
A very evident shot.
And probably not the shot you should have taken, but then you look at the way he handled the birthday party situation. I don't know. I feel like he's being drawn toward the light, and it's not a good thing, because I don't know if he can handle it when he gets there. Because what did Bischoff tell him? You got to have what? You got to
Get
have
a thicker skin.
And I don't know that he has that. He might. He may have it. But I don't know that he does. I don't know.
So let's also take a second and talk about the fact that, and I want to talk about a different side of this, just so that we're going to branch out here from the wrestling industry for a moment. Jacksonville Jaguars. What's the relationship there?
Well, his dad.
Right.
Yeah, his dad owns it.
His dad owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. The ownership of the Jacksonville Jaguars is now under investigation by the FBI for tax fraud as well as tax evasion. So
I did not know that.
and
Well,
they're
that's what Orton's comment back to Tony Khan was.
they're also being investigated for international money laundering. And so I think there's a much bigger problem here for Tony Khan than anything that's related to the wrestling world. Because, quite frankly, Tony Khan, guess what he's made his money off of? His father.
Well, yeah, daddy.
And so if that money goes dry, who funds AEW?
That was my first thought when Randy attached that article.
Vince.
So, there's just so many other pieces to this.
So I don't know anything about that situation, but the only thing that I did hear was Tony Khan did say that was from like over a year ago, and it's been resolved.
Wait, what?
The whole, whatever the article was that Randy posted.
So the article that Randy posted was from about 14 months ago. If you were to go and search recent headlines, they are still actively under investigation. I don't know whether or not that's made any progress, but the article he posted was from about 14 months ago.
I feel like once you're at that level of financial impact and you're investigated for something like that, I feel like that's one of those things that doesn't ever really go away.
Well, no, because tons of other things are going to stem from it. I mean,
Right.
If you give the federal government reason to come digging in your backyard, and I would say this confident about any business owner in the country, if you give the federal government a reason to come digging, it's probably not a good idea.
Well, and
Yeah.
I don't even think they have to have a reason. If you are on that, again, financial level, I feel like they have an eye on you anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So then if you throw in, if there's a slip up, if there's something that doesn't quite look right, now they're going to come digging, and they're going to dig, and they're going to dig, and it could take years.
Well, and they're going to dig till they find something.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I just feel like it's never really going to go away. It may go dormant, but it's not necessarily ever going to go away.
Yeah, I agree. So, I think everybody got a good kick out of his interaction with Randy Orton.
Absolutely.
You know, I always appreciate good fun. Randy Orton's glass house comment was
amazing.
Was classic. And then the Jacksonville Dixie just made me laugh. Like
Yeah.
the moment I saw that, it just
And all
made me
this
laugh.
stems from CM Punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His first tweet after being announced on Fox, he tagged, forget exactly what he said, but he tagged like a few people and then Tony Khan. Well, pretty much, I think he just said like nothing is
So,
off limits or something like
He
that.
tagged WWE, Vince McMahon, and Tony Khan in
yeah.
the same tweet.
Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah.
But already, you're just stirring up crap. And he didn't even say anything negative. So that's why I think it was so surprising that in just the direction that Tony's response went. Like out of everything you can crap on, everything, you pick that.
That
Which
one.
is a
Right.
serious thing. Like, you know, whatever the true situation in that was. Like, if it was a safety
But we've
hazard
heard
or
some
whatever,
very
but,
vocal comments from the wrestlers, so you know it's a sensitive subject
right,
for
so
people.
like, why?
Well, yeah.
I don't know. That was my, like, I was just like, really?
Well, and
Like,
I think that's
everything
why
you
he
can,
took
like,
the shot,
crap
because
on.
that is, you know, like you said, there's a lot of other things that he could have crapped on,
Yeah.
but there aren't many other things that are as sensitive as that.
No. Not for the folks that were involved in it.
Not for the ones that didn't get out.
Right. Regardless of what the reason
If you were
was.
sitting on
Right.
that plane or in that airport, you're pissed and scared. You would have to be.
So we talked previously about Jim Ross's comments about how, and I quote, AEW has too many flips and flops for me. He has now gone back on the record to say that he is not interested in leaving AEW, but he appreciates the fact that Tony Khan allows him to be authentic and honest about what he sees.
Was that a concern? That he was
No,
leaving?
I don't think anybody brought it up as a concern. I just think
it
there
was
was
just
some
a generalized
Just
statement.
yeah, there was a conversation about it. I think
and
that
just since we're not used to people actually speaking their true
Yeah.
feelings.
Right.
Okay.
so he was trying to convey that, like, yeah, I said it, but it wasn't. I wasn't
It's just
saying
constructive.
right. He was basically
Got it.
coming out to say, I'm not saying I want to leave AEW. I'm just they're telling me it's okay for me to speak my mind,
Not
and
so
I'm
you don't like
speaking
something.
right,
And that's
I'm
fair.
speaking
That's
my
good.
mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, if you look at WWE, that doesn't happen.
Oh, no.
Uh-uh.
No.
Mhm.
You say something the boss doesn't like, and let's see how quickly you don't get TV time,
Right.
or you end up chasing the 24/7 title.
Mhm.
Or just jobless.
Or
Get your-
jobless.
Get your cardio in that way.
Yeah, I mean you will.
I'm appreciating, you know, the segments where we do see that title now are shorter.
Mhm.
But we're actually getting matches out of that title
Right,
now
and
too.
exactly. They're shorter and they're less distracting. Was going to be the other part, you know.
Yeah.
And,
And ruining matches.
like
Yeah.
it was, because there was, I can't remember, was it Buddy Murphy and who? It was Buddy Murphy
They're having a match?
mhm,
Cedric?
and yeah, Cedric
Yeah.
Alexander. They were having a match, and it was awesome. Caught myself.
Mm-hmm.
Caught myself right there.
He almost dropped an
I
F.
almost had it. I was like, but no, that match was great. And then all of a sudden, you get the little stream of unused, you know, tossed to the side wrestlers chasing a title around the ring. And then, no, it was R-Truth. Because Truth got out of the ring during the match to chase the title.
Mm-hmm.
It was Buddy Murphy and R-Truth. And that match was great until that title starts
Oh, yeah.
circling the ring.
Yeah,
And
you're
Truth
right.
gets out.
Oh yeah, that ruined that match.
And he only runs, like, chases around twice, gets back in, gets kicked in the face, gets pinned, match is over.
Yeah.
And it
I
was a
remember.
great match, and they ruined it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Moving on to the last topic for AEW tonight. Full Gear estimated to have gotten 100,000 pay-per-view buys, which matches All Out. It came in just less than All Out. All Out had an estimated 110,000 pay-per-view buys. Is it just me, or does this seem like not as much as I thought it would have been.
I don't know. I don't.
Well, then again, I got to watch it through people's Facebook Live in it, so
I still am holding out kind of expectations and things for AEW pay-per-views, things like that. So I'm trying to give it time. Let's give it a year.
Yeah.
I think a year is, and we've said this 1,000 times on here. I don't know. Yeah, I would have thought it would have been more if I have to answer the question. But at the same time, I don't know that I'm shocked that it wasn't. If that makes any sense.
I don't think it's a bad sign.
No.
I honestly didn't even think of what the number or the buy rate would be. I put no thought into it at all.
I mean, we were busy that day.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's very true.
But yeah, I think the only reason I'd be a little surprised would be the 110,000?
Mm-hmm.
I marked it up. That they had initially. That was the people, that's your core audience, that we had no other option or no other way to actually watch AEW at that point.
Right.
Now we do, where you can see the fallout on Wednesday. You can see the results. And you can see the follow-up going forward. So whereas before you had no option and you had no other way to actually watch AEW itself. Whereas now you can see it every week. So, and pay-per-view isn't what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
If this was 10 years ago, I would be concerned at that number. But I think right now, asking someone to pay $50 or $60 for a 3-4 hour show is a lot, no matter how much they love the show or the product itself. Which is why WWE has the network. Not
Right.
the sole reason, of course, but you know.
So let's talk.
Just imagine right now if they asked us to fork out $60 for a pay-per-view.
Let's talk about numbers for
Negative.
a second.
Right.
Negative.
Right. Exactly.
Let's talk about numbers for just a second here. So 100,000 pay-per-view buys for Full Gear, 110,000 buys for All Out, with an estimated, we'll say, 20,000 in attendance at Full Gear, and about 34,000 in attendance at All Out. So if we take those things into consideration, and we take, in my opinion, the worst pay-per-view of WWE for the year, Hell in a Cell, with the way it ended. So they had 14.
Definitely most disappointing.
They had 14,000 pay-per-view buys, 1.5 million views.
For Hell in a Cell?
For Hell in a Cell. 1.5 million views, 14,000 buys. Only because they're not all major broadcast companies cover WWE's pay-per-views anymore because of the network. So, like, there are certain...
Very limited.
Yeah, there are certain providers that
Not
just
many
don't
at
even
all.
carry it anymore. So, out of the ones that were available, 14,000 buys,
Which is-
1.5 million views. I'm sorry, who's AEW?
I think
So
what we
and I don't mean to say that to sound negative, but when AEW is consistently trying to talk about going after and challenging
That's
WWE,
where I was
you're
going.
just not playing in the same ballpark.
no. I mean, you've got
And it's not a discredit to them. They're just not there yet.
they could get there, but I think they have to stick with what they do best
I agree.
and
You're
not get outside of that right now.
You're competing against NXT, which for all...
Which beat them in the ratings this week.
Yeah.
However,
Hey, look, NXT was amazing this week.
it
all-
was.
Let me just
However,
go
they
ahead and
did
say
have, you know,
all things
main
considered...
on the show.
It was still
Oh,
awesome.
it was great.
Yeah. All things considered, which mind you, it only took 8 weeks for WWE to bring in the big names to NXT. I just want to point that out. 8 weeks before they started shifting big names.
Yeah,
Well,
but now
look at that.
let's get through Survivor. Let's get
Yeah.
through Sunday.
Sure, and
and
see what happens after that.
and see who stays.
Exactly.
So I definitely...
Because it was way more of an invasion angle than it was shift
Yeah.
guys over.
So, but at the same time, so what I was...
NXT did invade SmackDown.
Well, because of Survivor Series.
Right.
The point I was trying to make is that I don't mean any of this as a discredit to AEW. I just think AEW needs to stick to what they do well.
Mhm.
And I think AEW, if they're going to be successful, needs to give up this idea that you're going to challenge WWE.
Yeah.
Allow your brand to continue to grow organically and authentically, and give up the fact that you're trying to challenge the juggernaut of the wrestling industry.
If I was AEW, I wouldn't even be worried about
I wouldn't. I'd be worried about putting on good matches on
Right.
Dynamite and putting together a great pay-per-view card.
Because you can't. You're still a new company. You can't expect to just jump to the top of
Because-
the mountain.
And I would
Start
suggest
off.
not having any more death matches between
Well,
Jon
and that
Moxley and any.
That didn't give them any good.
No, that's what I'm
PR.
saying. Do not
Which match?
The John Moxley Omega match.
Oh.
The death
They
match.
didn't get any good PR out of that match.
It was awful.
None. Now, God, I can't bear with me for a second because this is going to be painful for all of us.
Do I need to hold your chair still?
No. But in the mindset of our president, any PR is good PR. So the fact that people are still talking about that match, some people would say,
It's what, like I said earlier,
is they accomplished their goal.
it's like I said earlier.
Whether it's good or bad, you're still talking about
right.
it.
I mean,
Positive
I hear
attraction
you.
or
I
negative
get it.
attraction, it's still attraction.
Well, I mean, people,
Absolutely.
I mean, you had 100,000 people watching it, basically. But I don't think I would do it again. Like, I wouldn't push it, and that's what I'm saying. You got people to watch. Nobody knew going in that it was going to be a damn death match. Barbed wire tables, things like that. But,
Well, I don't think anybody knew what we were going to get.
well, that's what I'm saying. Nobody knew, so you're going to watch it. But if I knew that was going to happen again, if you told me we were going to have that match again, I wouldn't watch it. And it has nothing to do with the performers.
It's a different industry now.
That
match 10 years ago would have been
ECW.
the most popular match on the card
Well,
Been
years
like
ago,
old
that
ECW.
happens in Philadelphia
on a regular basis.
with Paul Heyman and a ponytail.
10 years ago, WWE did it for ECW One
Right.
Night Stand.
Right. That's
Right.
what I'm saying. It
So-
happens
Well,
there.
more than 10 years
Right.
ago.
But whatever that was,
Yeah.
it worked then.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not
But
the
it was
same.
it was a one and done.
Right. It's not the same fan base now.
Or could we
It's
argue?
not the same society.
We could argue if you took that match overseas or in Japan, it's fine. It gets over. But I just think they chose the wrong time, the wrong place, the wrong
agree.
venue, the wrong crowd for two great performers, and it just doesn't fit now.
Yeah. So, I wanted to talk about this briefly just because I wanted to talk about numbers for a second. And the only other thing that I'm going to talk about here that I just want to point out is 100,000 buys, which I agree with you, man. It's a lot of money. $60 for a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. For a lot of people, that's a lot of money. But your weekly television show is averaging $750,000. And you got 100,000 pay-per-view buys. So,
But we're only 8 weeks in.
I'm with again. I'm not counting them out
And
right
I'm not
now.
saying that's great numbers. I'm sure they
I just
would
think
expect it more at
I
that
want
point,
them
but
to stick to what got them to the
I think
game.
they will. I think they will.
But the behavior, I hope they will. But
Keep
the
Tony
behavior
Khan
that
in the
I'm
back.
seeing from Tony Khan and the risks that I'm seeing AEW take do not lead me to believe that they will. I think they're trying to take on WWE in a manner, and it's too soon.
Mhm.
Because we have seen what happens when you try to go toe-to-toe with them. Ask everyone that's tried. There's only one, and it doesn't even have the same name, that's still in business. And they only lasted 2 weeks before they gave up the fight.
But that was actually probably really smart on their part, or they wouldn't even
Well,
be
what-
around now to have a
Well,
different
what
name.
would have been smarter is just never trying to do it.
Well, right.
And if they hadn't, we'd probably still have the TNA that we had, which
Was
I'm
it
going to tell you
pretty good?
It
was
pretty
better
good.
than what we
Oh,
get
yeah.
from AEW right now.
I
If you
enjoyed
look at the
TNA.
roster they had in those
Yeah.
that however many
It was
years,
insane.
it wasn't. Yeah.
It was stacked.
There's no
Yeah.
reason why they
I
shouldn't
mean, you
have
had
been
Hall of
knocking it.
Famers in
Yeah.
there.
It was
You had
perfect.
all sorts of stuff.
I mean, you had
So-
Kurt Angle, Scott Steiner,
It was the
Kevin
perfect
Nash,
mix. The
Booker
perfect
T.
mix. Yeah.
Sting,
I mean,
AJ Styles,
Yeah.
Samoa Joe.
icons from across the industry.
No, you were stacked, loaded.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's
you had
not.
Bischoff, you had Hogan at one point.
I just want AEW to stick to what got them to the dance, and I think they'll be fine.
But I don't think they will because they're not. They are focused on building new stars, and that is one thing that
They say that, but that's not what I'm seeing.
But they're
Well,
not
how
doing
are you-
it.
So, like, but if you
Is
look
Chris
at
Jericho a new star?
okay,
Is
but
Cody
if you
Rhodes
look
a new
at
star?
Billy Gunn.
Is Billy Gunn a new star? Is John Moxley a new star? Is Kenny Omega a new star? How about the Young Bucks? They've been around for a little while.
but if you look at everyone else that they are promoting on the show, like your Darby Allin, your Scorpio Sky, who was a main feature in this week's show, your MJFs, they've only been on TV 8 weeks, guys. Like, you need your Chris Jerichos and your Cody Rhodes and your John Moxleys and all them to bring your audience in. Because we would be sitting here saying they have no star power. That's why their ratings suck. Their ratings are at what they are right now because of your Chris Jerichos and all of them. This is their foundation, and they're just gonna, if they have to grow. I agree, they have to grow and they have to progress, but they have to have time. And you have to
I see
let
where
them
you're
build
coming
your
from.
stars. Chris Jericho is putting over a star after star or newcomer after newcomer every week.
So who has he lost to?
Last week he just lost to Scorpio Sky in the tag
But
match.
before that, who did he lose to? He did
He
a
had-
really good job of putting all those guys over. That he
He
beat.
had very good matches with them though.
But he
and-
beat them. And the industry would tell you
Okay,
that.
but if you
John
look at
Cena
your Young
buried how
Bucks
many
and your
people?
Kenny Omegas and your
So
John
we're gonna
Moxleys
give-
and your Cody Rhodes,
I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I agree with you.
but they are putting them over. That's been one of the main
So
issues. Is
why
that
is
Cody
John
Rhodes
Cena the
and-
guy that gets seen as burying every other star?
Say that again.
Why is John Cena the guy that gets labeled as burying new talent? He did the same thing that Chris Jericho is doing right now, and he was branded as burying talent.
That's different.
It's
though.
not different. It's the
WWE
same
was
thing.
an established brand. They weren't.
Jericho's
It wasn't
not.
an all or
So
nothing for WWE.
Pause
though.
for just a second there. I agree with you. WWE is an established brand.
WWE
Let's put-
sells out WrestleMania before you even know the card.
Let's put WWE aside, and let's talk two guys: John Cena, Chris Jericho. So does John Cena not have his own brand?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so does Chris Jericho have his own
Of
brand?
course.
And his brand is burying young talent.
Chris Jericho?
I'm asking a question.
Oh, in my opinion, no. I don't think he's burying.
So
the
I
talent.
agree with you. I don't think Chris Jericho is burying the talent. What I see from AEW right now is you're pitching a story that doesn't match your actions.
What?
Because the
what
story
is it?
you're pitching is we're going to be built on the foundation of building new talent. I don't see that from AEW right now. And I'm not saying they're not doing it. As a fan watching their product, I don't see that.
Okay.
What I see is you're using older guys that you know can carry your business and get you the popularity. So you're doing the exact same thing that WWE does that we as wrestling fans chastise WWE for. And AEW's doing it. So the biggest argument in WWE in the last 5 years is you're using part-timers and old names to carry your business. Well, guess what AEW is doing
But
right
who's
now?
a part timer in AEW?
But they're still using old names to carry their business.
But they're still full time wrestlers on the active roster.
I'm not
like,
arguing that point.
But that was
You're preaching that you're trying to do something, but you're not delivering on that message yet. 8 weeks in, you're right. It may take them 12 weeks, 9 months before we actually start to see the new talent carry the weight. But the biggest thing they could have done to build new talent was not put the belt on a guy whose career, who is best in his prime, was 5 years ago. They put their belt on a guy who should not have been your first champion if your entire platform is built on building new wrestlers. You put it on a guy whose prime ended 5 years ago. Because I don't care what anybody says, Chris Jericho is still a hell of a performer, but he's a lot more sloppy now than he used to be.
Yeah, I don't think this is in ring wise. I don't think this is
Right.
Jericho at his prime. I think character wise, 110%.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, absolutely.
110%
His
every
ability
day.
on the microphone now
Yeah.
is better than it's ever been.
He could stop wrestling today, and I think he would be just as useful to them, if not more, for the rest of his career. Just being a manager type, or
Yeah.
just being
a voice.
that mouthpiece
Just being a
for
voice.
someone.
Yeah.
I
Just for
would.
someone who needs it. Yeah.
I would bow down to AEW and say you guys are delivering on your message if they get the likes of those guys out of the picture. Because right now, you're again, guys, I hate to say it, but John Moxley, he's not an AEW guy. He's been doing this a long time. He's not a rookie. So it's an old name. Kenny Omega, not a new guy. The Young Bucks, not a new guy. Cody Rhodes, not a new guy. None of them are new guys. I said guy instead of guys.
And at the same time, we were like,
So none of those guys are new guys. All I want you to do is tell me what you want to do and then do it. Don't tell me what you're gonna. The best part about WWE is when we tell them, "Hey, you're giving us crappy product," they look at us and go, well, we're gonna keep giving it to you because you're gonna keep watching it." AEW saying this is what we're doing, and I don't see the actions that reflect that. I just don't.
Okay.
I mean, Cody. I would have even given credit to Cody beating Jericho for the title. I would have.
Yeah.
I would have given you credit for that because I would have said, now you validated Cody Rhodes.
well, that's coming at some point.
Eventually.
That's coming. And I'm okay with it when it happens.
Sure. I just want to see them follow through on their message. Because I agree with you, they are giving great spots to the younger talent on their shows. They really are. And they're giving what seems like more time to those matches as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the main event matches don't always run as long as some of the mid-card matches, which is the opposite of what we see from WWE. But I just want to see, if you're going to tell me you're going to do something, then do it. And your actions need to align with your messages. You can't tell me that you're building an entire platform on new talent and you let two old guys.
I don't think they've ever said the entire focus is on new talent.
Well, they haven't, but what they've committed to is they
your corner pieces. You have to have your established players. Like any sports team, like you have like your Tom Brady's, you have your key and your star players, and then you build the rest of the team around them, and that's what they're doing. They had their star players going into it, which your average person is gonna know who Chris Jericho is. They're gonna know the name Rhodes. They may not know Cody, but hey, wasn't that Dusty? Oh, that's a something.
Right.
Let me check it out.
But at some point, using your sports analogy, at some point you ride those older players so long that now you don't have a clue what you're going to do when they're gone.
I agree.
Right.
And I think if we were a year into this and Chris Jericho is still your champion, you're still your main focus, I would disagree with that. Depending on the story, of course, but I would probably be safe to say, like, I would think at that point, like, he's got to go. You know, like, he should be the main focus. But
I want to ask you a question here.
We're a little over a month.
Just because you and I could go back and forth about this
Which
all
we
day.
could, which is why
Right.
I was trying to
not
respond.
Because we're not going to agree.
You succeeded.
I was trying.
Yeah.
Well, for the most part.
We're not going to agree, and that's
We're not.
okay. But I want to ask you a question just because I want to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Agree to disagree.
If Chris Jericho were to get injured tomorrow,
Mhm.
and AEW now has to figure out what they're going to do with their title,
Mhm.
where does it go?
Well, based on their logic, they would go to their ranking system. I don't know offhand who is at the top.
Right.
I'm assuming it may be Cody since he was just in line. So
Right.
my thought would be they would probably go Cody if he's medically cleared versus probably. Well, again, it with them, but that's a good point. With them, it's based on something. Their ranking system. Whether I agree with it 100%, if it makes sense to me, whatever. That's what they're going off of. So that's what I have to go off of. So
I mean,
whatever
that's one
their
thing.
system would be, then all right, well.
So the
That's
only
one thing I do like about AEW. They're trying to make it more of like a sport thing, like kind of like UFC and boxing. They go
Which
off
in
of,
in wrestling,
rankings.
right? In wrestling, it's hard to do because it is
Yeah.
predetermined.
Right.
So you can't. It's
That's
not
true.
truly that.
There's another
that
company that
aspect
tried a
of it.
ranking system for 4.5 years before they abandoned it. They were called WWE, and it was the power ranking systems, and the fans didn't give two shits about it.
Oh, that was
And so it
different.
went. No, it's not different. It was a ranking system that WWE used. So you're going to tell me that you're going to buy into a ranking system that AEW is feeding
Did they
you?
use that to determine their number one contender?
I don't know
That
if
was
it.
just a WWE.com feature. That wasn't.
I don't. But I don't know that
their
So,
actual contenders.
AEW
is
has
what
got a
AEW is
ranking
doing.
system, but that ranking system is not generated off of specific stats. It's generated by created stats that are done by the folks that make the matches, call
Well,
the
but
plays.
that was what my point
So-
was.
Did you say call plays?
Yeah, because that's what they are.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying to him. That's what my point is. Whether I agree with it or not, that's what they're using. So that's what we have to go off of. Whereas WWE is just whoever they slide in next week.
Well, but it's no different for AEW because they can change who's in that number one spot the moment they rewrite the script.
They don't have scripts.
Well, they don't have storylines either.
Right.
Which would mean you don't have ranks because if you don't know who's next in line,
They.
then there's no
My
story to be told.
understanding is they work backwards. They have like with full gear.
Golf. Yeah. you learn how to play golf?
I don't know anything about golf, so I don't know.
The only thing I'm trying to say here is that you're trying to base a ranking system off of something that doesn't exist.
Hey, look, I told you I didn't agree with the ranking system. I didn't say it was a great idea. I'm just saying that's what they go off.
You're
of.
trying. I mean, it's fake.
I'm not
It's
saying,
fake.
hey, the ranking system is a great idea.
Like
I'm
Nico,
just
get
saying,
over it.
that's what it was.
It's fake. So,
Dude,
Okay, this is in case the wrestling gods hit you with something.
so I mean, the reality of this is that the whole argument's a moot point. On your side or my side, it's a moot point. The reason why is because it's not this. It's all predetermined. So AEW can say, well, this is our ranking system. This is how we're going to base it. No, it's not. It's just who you decide is going to be the next number one contender.
I know, that's what I was saying.
That's the one thing I didn't
So,
understand.
well, then,
about
but don't
the
say
way
it's
they
an
did it.
ranking system because it's not.
But no, you asked me if Chris Jericho was injured.
Who would be the
yeah,
next
so that's
person?
why I said that.
Whoever the side it was going to be.
But we
That's
could.
what my answer
But
was.
it's, and I appreciate that.
You just wanted my take, and that's what I'm not in. Like,
But that's
what I said. I
no
don't-
different than WWE when they just determine who's the next guy in line. AEW is doing the same thing. This is not a new science. Double K.
You're both right.
You're just
You
trying
are.
to end the argument.
Well, you're both right.
We're literally just sitting
Hold
here,
on.
just like-
You're literally saying the same damn thing.
right.
Just
and
two
that's
different
why
ways.
and that's why it's doing this.
Right.
You're literally saying the same damn thing, and I think our viewers at home have yanked their hair out, and they look more like you now than I.
I mean, that's probably true.
So,
That's probably true. So we'll move on.
Me and Double K were just kind of sitting there, just like.
but I was enjoying it for a little while, and then
Yeah,
I
it's
then I
like,
started
alright.
really listening. I was like, wait a minute.
No, I was
saying
about to
the
say
same
y'all were
damn
both going back and forth about the exact same thing. Y'all were both saying the same thing.
So, anyways, that's going to wrap up our conversation with AEW. A-Man's always going to defend them. I'm always going to be critical of them. Well, I mean,
I thought you said you were moving on.
I am. She's,
That's enough.
just to clarify, she is a diehard supporter of
Wait a
the
second.
wrestling. Hold on, let me finish. Of the wrestling industry,
He just told you to shut your mouth.
Yeah.
And-
You roll.
That's fine.
and she wants
Jabroni.
them
Right.
to be successful.
Well, I want them to be successful.
And I want them to be successful too.
Do you?
I do. I'm just
Do you
more
though?
critical of them. I'm just
The rest of
more
us are-
Nico, what do you think? Does he want them to be successful?
You're the
See?
outside voice in
See?
this.
He's really critical, but he's not saying he wants them to fail.
Right. I don't want them to fail.
Wasn't he the one when we first started this whole thing? that
Oh,
was like,
absolutely.
They're gonna fail within the first week.
But he didn't say he wanted them to. He just said they would.
Right. I never said, hey, I want them to
Hey.
fail.
Who asked you?
You did. You just asked him.
You've had that moment like 3 times this week. Man, it was you.
It's true. It's true.
Who asked you? You did.
And a hush falls over the crowd.
Nah, sorry, I got distracted. Anyways. Moving on to WWE. What's coming on this coming Sunday? That's not it. Survivor Series. For the first time in Survivor Series history, 3 brands represented.
So did
At
they
Survivor
change the
Series.
logo to blue,
Well,
yellow, and red?
that's an old logo. The new logo is blue, yellow, and red.
I don't think I've seen the new one.
The new one is.
Oh, hey!
So-
I didn't realize Tony Khan was in Spaceballs.
So we're going to go down the match card, and that's going to be the extent of our WWE conversation this
Dark
evening,
helmet.
except for one other piece that I want to add to it. But
Yeah, there it is.
let's talk briefly. Brock Lesnar, Rey Mysterio. So
You think they pull another Eddie Guerrero and Brock Lesnar match?
Maybe. Hey, maybe.
Rey's talking a retirement tour.
I told you a month or so ago, that I read somewhere that they potentially were planning his retirement match for Tampa against his son. I can't remember where I saw it at this point. Like I said, it's been a month, maybe 2 months ago. But I did see they were planning Rey's retirement match against Dominic at WrestleMania.
That would be cool.
Would it? No.
I mean, your retirement match against your own son is the biggest stage.
I mean, it would be
For
cool
him, it's
for
really
him,
cool.
absolutely.
Right.
For
That's what I'm saying. For him, it's really cool.
as a dad, I can say it from that standpoint. I think it would be amazing to be able to do that. As a fan watching it, I'm like,
So here's what I think happens. I think there's a chance we get swerved on Sunday, and I think there's a chance Ray gets the belt. We've seen this storyline before. We saw it with the Great Khali. We saw it with the Big Show. We saw it with the Giant in WCW. We've seen this before with Rey Mysterio. So it would not be a shocker to me for me to see Rey Mysterio leave Sunday with the title. However, what I could also see is Rey losing that match and his son costing him the match. So it's no holds barred. So that tells me somebody's going to interfere.
Well, yeah, it's going to happen.
At some point in time.
Isn't he still hurt?
Who?
Kane.
Was it Kane? Oh.
Velasquez.
So
Yeah,
not
Kane.
at some point in time, somebody's going to interfere, and they're not going to be disqualified. So Dominique interferes. Lesnar gets involved. But because Dominique gets hurt, Ray gets distracted. Then Ray falls to Lesnar, ultimately Dominique being the one that cost Ray the match. That sets up your potential feud at WrestleMania 36. Because, guys, whether you realize it or not, we're 5 months away. We are 5 months away from WrestleMania 36 in Tampa. So we are merely about 45 days away from the road to WrestleMania. So it's this. I mean, we got Wu-Tang Clan over here, but
hey, I just had somebody ask me a few minutes ago if you missed the memo on the black shirt tonight.
I guess.
So
my T-shirt's not even black.
So I just. You guys will do your picks later this weekend. I'll send those out. Which
thought it, we're stuck. We're stuck.
Which, mind you, this will be the first time Nico's had to officially defend his no holds barred championship, as he'll be challenged this coming Sunday for that title in the picks.
Hopefully he fares better this weekend than he did against Damian Wayne.
That's true.
I wrestled 3 times.
Yeah, but you did a great job of taking that L.
No, he took it down.
So, God. Match number 2, Becky Lynch versus Bayley versus Shayna Baszler. Your thoughts on the triple threat women's match?
I think it's going to be good. I mean, I can't say I'm massively excited for it, but I think it's going to be a good match. I'm excited to see Shayna in there with those two. Like I said, I think it's going to be a good match. I think once the match starts, I'll be excited for it. But like right now, just thinking about it, I'm interested to see it. I'm into it. I think it's going to be good, but...
So, amen?
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, I'm pretty much for the case. I'm looking forward to it.
I think that that match or the Shinsuke AJ Styles Roderick Strong match have the potential to steal the show. One of those two. Because let's be real, that match with Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Shayna Baszler, I don't have a problem saying that with the exception of Charlotte Flair, you have the 3 best women in the women's divisions of WWE competing at Survivor Series.
No way.
Like, this is one of those few times where I can say that the people who have the belts are the best ones in their divisions. Again, with the exception of Charlotte Flair, she's just remarkably talented, as is Sasha Banks. Mm-hmm. But those 3 women deserve to have this night to steal the show.
I hope they do, but I think if I've got to say what I think is going to be the match of the night, then it's got to be AJ, Shinsuke, and Strong.
Mm-hmm.
I think those guys are going to take people out of their seats. This, for me, this is the match that reignites Shinsuke Nakamura's career.
Sitting here, if you didn't say it, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the match where people not realize, but remember just how good he is.
As long as he doesn't hit anybody in the balls.
Yeah, which we haven't seen that in a while. They got away from it.
If he drops down and hits...
But we're going to see your buddy, because he'll be there with him. So your best friend will be ringside with him. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get an opportunity to see that. I
think that's
remember,
funny.
there's a window. There's a window on the other side of that
screen.
screen.
Don't remind him.
He can go through this too.
This is plastic. I'll bounce.
No, you won't.
So,
Any table can be broken with enough paper.
That's right.
so
What?
we've got
Baccarat
we've got 2 triple threat brand matches, 3 actually. So
There's
we've
a
got
lot going on.
There is.
On
I
the
really
card.
don't have much of an interest in the tag team match. I hate saying that, but I don't have a lot of excitement about it. I do think it's going to be a great match.
If we get a match out of this, I think Daniel Bryan and The Fiend will tear it down. If we get a match.
If we get a match.
You know, if it's an actual match, I think they tear it down.
I'm actually concerned about that match because the Fiend doesn't really sell anything like standard wrestling moves. So, and this is a regular
I think we get
match.
a squash.
But that's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm concerned because you could really drag this story out. So how does it go? Does he squash Daniel Bryan, and then how do you really like? How does Daniel come back? Does he come back like fired up? Like I guess you could do that,
Brie
but huh?
Remod.
Yeah. Well, it was his birthday.
Mod.
I think today.
Bremod.
Bremod.
It was full on Bremod.
Yeah.
So
See, Bremod screws it all up.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's probably going to be a 1 to 3 minute squash match.
And do you think this match sets up anything in the
No.
future? With him, like any surprises, nothing. No.
I think
I
at
think this
some
is a filler.
I think at some point the bigger feud for the Fiend I feel like that road leads to Randy Orton. I've said it for 2 or 3
they're
weeks
on
now.
different brands though.
I don't care.
Universal title change.
Brock
You guys did
Lesnar
see
was
that.
drafted to SmackDown.
Yeah, but he quit SmackDown and moved to Raw.
Exactly. So there's always a way to make it work.
I don't see any interest in a Fiend Randy Orton match.
But
Quite frankly, though, given the link that you shared earlier today about the Fiend headlining WrestleMania,
Yeah.
I don't have any interest in seeing Fiend Roman Reigns either.
no,
I
I
think that was
absolutely
just a
don't have
bad
any.
rumor,
But
though.
see, but it's like you say it every week. You say it every week. You do, and I do. What they're doing with him is he's going back through everybody who has wronged him throughout his career. And let's think about who has wronged him, and think about who did it the worst. It's Randy Orton. So I feel like the last big feud, and it could be down the road. I'm not saying it's going to be next week. I'm not going to say it's going to be anytime soon. Especially if, like you said, what I shared today is true. If they're going to have him wrestle Roman at WrestleMania, I still feel like at some point, all roads point to the Fiend and Randy Orton.
Maybe at
Facing
some point in time, but I just had a thought while you were talking through that, and if that's true, and that's what because that does appear what they're doing is they're having him go back through everybody that wronged
Picking
him.
them off.
But wait,
There's one person that wronged him, who he only had one match with, and he lost that match.
with the Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
But if what you said was true, wasn't the Wyatt family's first feud against the Shield?
Yes,
So
as a group.
you can just go back to that with Roman. I mean, I don't think, and they had a pretty decent feud, but I don't remember
But
Roman doing anything specifically.
his feud was more
but-
with the guy that's not with the company anymore.
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying. So, like, that's the only thing that they can maybe tie back to because I don't remember anything else Roman related.
No, I mean, there's really not.
I gotta tell you, if we were to hear that we're gonna get Fiend Taker at 36,
Oh my gosh, that would be.
I don't even care what happens on the rest of the card.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I don't.
As long as I don't have to sit through the damn Doctor of Thugonomics again.
Yeah, I don't
And I
care.
think my disappointment there was more that it wasn't Taker, it was him.
I don't care who we get or what else we got. If we get that in Tampa, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. So
Be worth the
We're going to need to book some flights,
The
by the way.
entrance
yeah,
alone,
yes.
like just seeing both of them
Like
come
now.
out.
Not later.
So let's talk on through this Team Raw. Who do we think is going to win the Survivor Series matches between the women and the men? Do we have Raw, SmackDown, NXT?
I think
I
the
think-
men NXT.
You think what?
The men's NXT.
See, I think it's the women's NXT, honestly. And I mean, hell, it could even be the men's NXT.
What if NXT
I mean,
just
if you look at from a momentum standpoint right now, from show to show to show, NXT has all of it, as far as I'm concerned. Raw has none of it, and SmackDown maybe.
Well, what if NXT just does like a clean sweep?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wins
Raw
everything.
did last.
Wow.
Wins everything.
Yeah,
That would be a big deal.
I can see
Yeah, and NXT
NXT
is the
winning
only way that
everything
you can-
because then Wednesday nights.
Because next week, if you think AEW is gonna have a stacked show,
Yep.
okay, and WWE NXT is gonna need something to counter that, and all you have is the entrance that's gonna be there. But by the time Wednesday comes, you already know who won what because you've already seen Raw. Even if you didn't see Raw, you're on.
You know what's
social
going to
media.
happen on Raw.
Yeah, right.
Like
NXT
Raw
has
has
to have
turned
a
into
stacked
Days of
show.
Our Lives, where you can miss it for 6 months and watch one episode and know exactly what the
Yeah.
hell's going on.
I don't know what Paul Heyman's doing over there. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what he's doing. Because let's not forget, that's the guy that's running that show.
He's Bobby Lashley's fluffer for the Lana scenes.
So, let's talk.
I mean, name something else.
You're right. though.
Like I'm sick of that. Let's get it done. I'm with Corey Graves.
Let's
It's embarrassing at
talk
this
briefly
point.
here about this. Is the first time in WWE history where the NXT Championship is being defended on a main brand pay-per-view. So we've got a stacked weekend. We have NXT TakeOver on Saturday, followed by Survivor Series on Sunday. So when we look through this is the first time we've gotten this kind of a weekend from WWE because we've never had to do this before. So this is also the first time where we've talked plenty of times about how NXT shows up WWE. The main roster is what we've said. Well, guys, this is your opportunity to put that to the test. Because now you're not competing on a different night. Now you're not competing on a different show. NXT superstars, for the first time, are going to be in the ring at the same time on the same show with Raw and SmackDown superstars.
Yeah, I think they're more than ready. I mean,
I agree wholeheartedly, but I'm saying this is your chance. NXT, we, as well as the NXT stars, have always talked about how much different and better their product is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this Sunday, we're going to find out just how well they adapt to the... Because, guys, there's two completely different mentalities between those two. NXT is more storyline driven, time consuming, length of story. Like, they just do things at a slower pace. And the main roster is not that way. So this Sunday, we're going to find out, can they adapt to that environment? Can they step up and play on the same stage and still be just as good?
I don't have any doubt.
I don't
I
either.
have zero doubt.
And
I mean, because if you think about it, look at, was it last week on 2 different shows, Adam Cole was thrown into title matches to defend his title with Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
That went just fine. Those matches were great. The only thing I hated, and you knew it was going to happen, well, he defeated Daniel Bryan, but then Seth got jumped and everything went to hell. You know, those were 2 great matches.
Yeah. I think my prediction is when it comes to Sunday, saddle up and buckle down, because this is liable to be the best WWE pay-per-view of the year.
And as I was about to say, they are in the perfect place in Chicago
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
for this to happen. The only other place would be Philly. And I think even then, Chicago is the ideal crowd for this type of lineup.
So,
maybe in Chicago, somebody loses a teammate and they need to bring one in.
Well, that was going to
I
lead
was
me
just
into my
thinking-
next point, because I don't know if you guys watched CM Punk on Backstage, but Renee asked him and mentioned they're going to be in Chicago. And one of these teams, I think NXT, hasn't been completely announced yet. And he did
Neither for the women or men.
Right.
And he did say on the show that he obviously had like pretty much a soft spot for NXT because that was his thing. He was the indie guy, you know, coming up that way so he can relate to them. I wouldn't put money on it, but I mean, can you imagine?
Yes, I can.
Oh.
I think
yes, I can.
there is a very high probability that at some point in time in the night on Sunday, we're going to hear Cult of Personality.
God, I hope so.
I
hope
point
so
in time
for so many reasons. Most
of
them revolving around you, but for so many reasons, I hope we hear it.
I just have a feeling that here's the thing, if WWE is gonna pull the trigger,
they need to do it in Chicago.
Sunday's when you do it.
I don't think so though.
I do, because let's think about the last time CM Punk's Cult of Personality played in Chicago. It was on a Monday night, the Monday night following the Royal Rumble. Cult of Personality hit, but who came out?
It was Paul Heyman.
Paul Heyman, who gave a speech about how CM Punk essentially took his ball and went home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
you mean like just make an appearance?
To come, right.
Okay.
That I'm not saying to wrestle.
Okay.
That's why I said at some point in time we hear it.
Mm.
Now, I think there's also a chance that you hear it and he doesn't come out. Because WWE will love to do nothing more than piss the crowd off.
And again,
I love that.
Did you guys watch Backstage?
Not this week, no.
So, what he also mentioned was the fact that he has no idea who Baron Corbin is. Who is the only pretty much real heel in WWE? Baron Corbin. Imagine the heat he would get if he came out to CM Punk's music in Chicago. Yes. Everyone loses their shit, and it's Baron Corbin.
I mean, and CM...
like, you're done.
Many people across the wrestling industry will have no problem telling you that the best heel in the business right now is Baron Corbin.
Yeah. I've read
WWE?
No, in the business.
I've read many comments from different guys
across the industry, not just WWE guys.
Peers, yeah.
That have said he is a guy that is genuinely hated.
I wouldn't say in the business, but WWE for sure.
Name one better? Quick, go. First one.
MJF.
No.
Sammy Callahan.
Maybe.
I was going to say, is MJF actually truly hated, or are people still cheering when he walks out?
After what he did to Cody,
I don't know.
They are. Before then, they were. I was getting concerned because he was teetering. People were starting to.
Well, that's why they did the Cody thing, I'm sure.
Right.
But I still don't think he has the same level. Like Baron Corbin, people would just assume to spit on him and put water on him when he's on fire. You can't say that about MJF. So, because people still cheered on Wednesday when MJF came on TV.
Like, everybody does this when Corbin comes out.
Baron Corbin's been getting some cheers lately, though, too.
Every heel gets cheers. Some of them are more relevant than others. I mean, John Cena probably... I don't know that there's anybody that's ever been more polarizing because he could go back and forth depending on the crowd. Baron Corbin doesn't get a Baron Corbin chance. He always gets the boos and the you suck chance. He doesn't get any kind.
MJF.
For a week. He's been doing it for a week.
Okay, here we go again.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
So, it's not, again, not my opinion, the opinion of many people throughout the wrestling industry, though even those that are not in WWE have said that he's the best heel in the business. So, whether it's true or not, it's up to the fans. I mean, it really is. It's up to the fans as to whether that's true. I agree with you. I think that if he's not and you want to make him the biggest heel in the business, then you do exactly that.
I would love to see CM Punk, but I think I would love that slightly more just because people would be in Chicago, like people would be furious.
Because when we hear it, we're gonna get excited. Let's face it.
Yeah.
We're gonna get excited when we hear it start.
As much as I don't
when you hear the static,
yeah,
we're gonna get excited, and then Corbin's gonna come out. Now I'm just like, damn it, and I'm gonna walk to the kitchen.
So I think that there's a chance. I think it's some. That's why when I said I think there's a chance we hear Cult of Personality, I didn't say we're gonna see CM Punk. I just think if WWE is smart, you have to play these cards right. You have to.
I don't know.
You have got such a media storm coming into this.
But all of this is assuming that somewhere there's something we don't know about that he is going to get back in the ring.
Well, he's now backed completely away from him. It's never going to happen. To I'm not actively pursuing this.
Yeah.
So a very different change in tone from
He
CM
said
Punk.
that even before he signed with Fox.
But you know what though?
No,
I
but I'm
think a
talking
lot
about
of that change of heart, I feel, has to do with walking out to that music.
Oh, sure.
Being
The
on
feeling.
that camera, having the feeling that adrenaline rush
That
when you walk
crowd.
out there. How many guys do we know now personally, and how many have we heard through the years on that WWE level? Use The Rock for instance, that talk about the rush that they feel every
They're
single
addicted
time
to
you
it.
walk through the
Yeah.
door, being addicting.
So if you go back and watch the video of his entrance on Backstage, you can actually see him as he walks through the doors, where he hears the music and he's looking around as if he was looking
Yeah.
for the crowd.
Right.
And that's what he said on the show. He said this was the first time he was nervous for something and since he could remember. And he wasn't even nervous when he fought The Undertaker. He was more focused, and this is what he said. He was more focused on talking to AJ Lee than going out to face The Undertaker. So that's how he knows this is the right. And again, this is just a completely different role than actually going back to the ring. But
I'm going to say
obviously,
something.
this is the best thing we can hope for.
And
at this point.
unfortunately, it's being recorded, but I'm going to say something.
Oh.
And what I'm going to say is that if CM Punk comes out to his music on a WWE stage and has a genuine look of appreciation for what he is doing, then I will forgive him for everything that I've ever said about him. That look of genuine authenticity is the same look that comes from when The Rock walks through that curtain.
And that's why you, in particular, need to go back and watch Backstage. Because seeing him, especially the sit-down towards the end of the show with Renee, just hearing him talk and hearing him explain he was nervous for this,
Don't
shows
care.
that
He's
side.
not a WWE employee. I don't care. He's not. I don't care.
Hey,
Okay.
just be ready.
So I mean, I don't
Come
care.
Tampa.
He's not a when he comes out onto that stage, because it's real easy to sit in a studio with four people where you've got a multi-billion-dollar corporation telling you what you have to say. Because he's being contracted by Fox, which means they're the ones that are writing the playbook for what they want him to do. And they may be telling him, go talk about whatever you want to talk about. That might be what they're
Which
doing.
He did.
And that's fine. But to me, I've always said he owes the fans an apology for what he did. Because there's one guy that did something very similar to him, but that guy had the balls to come out in his Hall of Fame speech and apologize for what he did.
Yeah.
So he still owes that, but I will forgive him for everything that I've said about him if he shows that genuine appreciation for what he's doing. Because there's a very big difference between sitting in that studio with four people when he's not sitting in front of 10,000 fans who he walked out on.
He did do that. I mean, there's no real denying.
He walked out on. So that's the part that I've always held against him. So as soon as I can see him move past that, then I will forgive him for it. But sitting in that stage with four people while he's got 6 cameras looking at him doesn't mean jack.
Some real animosity.
That's
So,
fine.
well, I mean, have I ever not had animosity towards him?
No, that's true.
I mean,
That's true.
if there's one thing that I've been consistent about, it's him. No different than you and Sami Zayn.
The jobber. Did you guys get that meme? I
Yeah,
sent?
that was pretty
did.
funny.
Thank you to Kevin Mears for that. That made my day that day.
So that's going to wrap up our conversation on WWE for this week, because we already talked about The Fiend potentially with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And I didn't want to drag that out too long. And there's not really anything big going on in WWE news right now other than Survivor Series and NXT coming into the fold for that.
ACH has 2 bookings coming up. He's going back to Wrestle Revolver.
I did. Good to see that.
Good for him. I'm glad to see that ACH has got a life out past WWE. I just still think that he handled, and again, I'm glad to see that it didn't end everything for him. And I wish him the best for what he's trying to do. So that's going to take us on to our final segment of Wrestle Rewind for this week, which, as always, is our Wrestle Rewind trivia. And we have... yes, sir.
I forgot the belt again.
It's very
Y'all talk about
assumptuous.
me.
Very assumptuous that you're going to take
No.
that belt with you.
Wait. Hold it.
Why?
I know where the damn belt is.
I knew where it was too.
No, you didn't.
I knew it was
Where?
stolen.
But that doesn't mean you know where it is.
What in
I
the
knew
hell?
it wasn't with me because it was
Well,
stolen.
you just said you knew where it was. I knew it wasn't with me. So
Yeah.
it's more accurate to say you knew where it was not.
In your possession.
And actually, when I said that, I was just referring to because that one night I almost forgot it. Y'all gave me crap for it. That's what
You
I was
had it
referring
stolen in your car.
to. No.
I'm
I was
not talking
the
about
one
that.
For this.
Forget that part. You're the
No, but
only
that's
one
what
in
I
this
was
group that had
referring
it
to.
stolen.
No, okay, that's not what wanted this to happen.
Why y'all bringing up old shit?
Exactly.
That's what she's thinking right now.
Exactly.
All right, so Wrestle Rewind trivia. Double K, our reigning defending champion,
How many times did you say last week?
Isn't it like 13?
13 times Wrestle
You lost 12 times.
Rewind champion. Smokey Z had that for 1 week.
Hey, I still had it. I still had it.
You never.
And he actually didn't even have it because I'm
No.
damn.
No. So here we go. You guys know the
Make me
rules.
mad if I win again.
You
Then
guys
I won't get it again.
You guys know that. Why aren't you still huffing markers over there?
I have to do it.
That sounds like the words of an addict, doesn't it? I need it.
I mean, I don't smell them like the whole time, but like whenever I go to initially use it.
You just did it again. So.
Yeah, it's just move on.
All right.
Let's just
All
move
right,
on.
15 questions. The person with the most points at the end is the winner. Kicking it off, this one is multiple choice. Question number 1. Which superstar was not KO'd by Bart Gunn in the Brawl for All tournament in 1998? Was it Bradshaw, Bob Holly, or The Godfather? Smokey Z.
Bradshaw?
That is incorrect. Double K.
Godfather.
That is incorrect.
It was Bob Holly.
That was Bob Holly.
Wait, it was not.
That was not KO'd.
All right, let me get my head in the game here.
This one, question number 2, is also multiple choice. Which superstar did not participate in the Brawl for All tournament in 1998? Was it Bradshaw, Ken Shamrock, or Draws? Double K.
Ken Shamrock.
Ken Shamrock is correct.
He couldn't have competed in it. He would have killed somebody. I mean, that was like the most common sense answer ever.
That's true. Question number 3. This one is not multiple choice. However, if you do not get it, you're eliminated from the game. Question number 3. The $1 million title was studded with what? Double K.
Diamonds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Had you got it wrong, I would have eliminated you from the game.
I would have walked out. I would have shown myself out the damn door. I'd have been like, come on, Ken. It's time
Question
to go
number
home.
4. Also not multiple choice. The $1 million title was worth how much money? Double K.
$1 million?
That is incorrect.
Yeah.
$100,000.
That is also
We've
incorrect.
had this question
Okay.
before.
Smokey Z.
Maybe the last thing.
500,000? I don't know.
That is
why I had
also
to
incorrect. $4 million was the asset value for the diamonds and the belt.
We all.
Question number 5. What position did Ted DiBiase enter into the 1989 Royal Rumble?
That's somewhere between 1 and 30, guys. Good luck.
You got a 1 in 30 chance.
Yeah.
89.
Smokey Z.
21st.
That is incorrect. 1989. Your first hint. John Cena and The Undertaker have both entered a man.
30.
30th is correct. Question number 6. The team of Owen Hart and Coco Beware was known as what? It is multiple choice. The questions or the answers are High Energy, the Blue Blazers, or the Jumping Jacks. Amen.
Was it the Blue Blade?
Nope. Blue Blazer was the character which Owen Hart died as. Double K.
Oh.
High Energy.
High Energy is correct. Question number 7. Who were the Steiner brothers' opponents on the very first episode of Monday Night Raw in 1993? Was it Ric Flair and Kurt Hennig, the Mounties, or the Executioners? Double K.
The Mounties.
That is incorrect.
It was the
Amen.
Executioners.
It was the Executioners.
Hey, come on. It's your choice. You can pitch a guess.
I tried to hit my button and
Question number 8. Not multiple choice. Who was Shawn Michaels' opponent at the King of the Ring in 1995?
What? Tommy's laughing like that cartoon cat. Cat. I can't remember the cat's name.
You mean the dog?
Baby, yeah.
Your first hint. This individual also had 2 other character names that he went by in his WWE career.
That's good hint.
Do we have to give the name that he was at that time?
That's correct.
Okay.
Who was the character that wrestled in that match? Double K.
Diesel.
That is incorrect.
Can I just have the hint? Wait, are you out?
no.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, he hadn't even started yet.
I'm sorry. I thought you
Here's your second hint. 2 of the other characters of this individual were the Godfather and Papa Shango.
But what was his name in that match?
Look at Nico.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What is his
10 seconds left. He was a member of the Nation of Domination.
Oh my gosh. Was it-
Time's up. It was Kama Mustafa.
Yep.
Ah.
Question-
And it's stuck now.
Question number 9. How did Kama's match at the King of the Ring in 1995 end?
I have no idea.
That match was against Shawn Michaels.
Let's take a guess.
Does it make you uncomfortable?
It really doesn't.
The
I was debating on if I was going to say it or not.
best part from my perspective is watching her because she's going,
Yeah.
oh, she's looking at it and looking away.
Sorry,
looking at
doing
it,
it. That's
looking
what I
away.
did. That's why I reversed direction.
Once that happened, I was like, alright, I can't.
I was watching the face.
Here's your hint.
Oh god.
This match is... The way this match ended is a form that we do not see often now in WWE. However, it would also be ruled under the name that the Hell in a Cell title match featuring The Fiend and Seth Rollins.
You have to
Amen.
stoppage?
No.
Okay.
KO.
That is also incorrect.
All right, give another hint. Because you give 2 anyway. We're already at 15 seconds. We wasted time laughing.
That's true.
I don't have another one for this one. I don't without giving it away. I just don't have another one. The answer is a draw.
I was thinking something like what they said, more
Yeah.
technical instead of just draw.
Yeah.
Question number 10. Who did Savio Vega pin in the semifinals of the King of the Ring in 1995? Double K.
Steve Austin.
That is incorrect.
Well,
I don't
you
even
were
have
really
a...
confident.
I don't even have a... We're going to scrap that question because I don't even know
Oh,
who
good.
that person is. Question number 10.
What was the answer?
Rhodey.
Oh, was that Road Dogg?
No.
But didn't he? Okay.
Question number 10. This is multiple choice. Which superstar was destroyed by Goldust at King of the Ring in 1997? Was it Owen Hart, Ahmed Johnson, or Crush? Smokey Z.
Crush.
Crush. Smokey Z's on the board.
Hey!
Question number 11, also multiple choice. How many rounds comprised a Brawl for All match during 1998? This was also multiple choice,
Oh, well,
but
go ahead.
Nope.
How
You
about
answered
it?
that.
You normally tell us it's multiple choice before you ask the question, and you didn't that time. So
Well, I get it's 1, 2, or 3, so it's not like it's that complicated. Double K.
didn't change my answer. It's 3.
That's 3 is correct.
I was gonna say 3 no matter what, but you know.
Smokey Z, you will need to get the next answer correct, along with every other answer after that.
So you were
Just to tie.
pretty much back there.
Wow.
Question number 12. Who did Ted DiBiase pay off to get a good slot in the 1989 Royal Rumble?
Ooh.
Oh man.
I do.
Something.
Smokey, you weren't even alive.
Nope.
You were still swimming around.
Me? What
He
year?
was still number 4. Several
1989.
thousand.
Oh, I wasn't a thought yet.
32 million actually on average.
Whatever. I guess it
When
depends
were
on
you
whose
born?
it is.
91.
Oh, man. She's only 2 years older than you.
Really?
What?
More than 2, but...
Born in 96.
All right,
That's
we're
what I
at,
said,
we're
more
at
than
a
2,
minute.
but-
Did we get a hint?
This is awful.
I forgot the question.
Who did
Oh.
DiBiase pay off?
Yeah.
In what year?
89.
We're going to skip that question.
All right.
Okay.
What was the answer?
Slick.
Oh.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't have got that.
No.
I don't know. If you'd have given a good hint, I could have gotten that.
Question number 12.
Reverend.
Who eliminated the $1 Million Man from the 1989 Royal Rumble?
It's like all about him.
I've got a perfect hint for this one.
Who eliminated him in 80?
If I can't give you... We're going to make a new rule. If I can't give you a hint, I won't ask the question.
That's fair.
Because I don't have hints that they provide. I have to come up with my own, so I'm relying on my own knowledge.
That's fair. Reverend.
No, I was thinking Slick Rick.
That's a.
Yeah. I mean, that would have kind of given the answer, like
Yeah.
completely.
Right. Here's your hint. This individual left a match that he was in with Andre the Giant in fear for his life. Double K.
Big John Studd.
That is correct. It was Big John Studd.
You're giving that hint at least on 4 separate questions.
Yeah.
That was an actual question once. It wasn't even a hint. It was an
Alright.
actual question once.
Smokey Z, you are officially eliminated from this week's episode of Wrestle Rewind Trivia.
Thanks for coming.
Question number 13. What city hosted the 1990 Royal Rumble?
Royal Rumble?
1990 Royal Rumble.
Not multiple.
Not multiple choice.
Of all the ones that should have been,
I
this
know.
one kind of should have been.
I wonder how they determine what's multiple choice and what's not.
First 2 questions on each card.
Okay, well, there's that.
It's a good answer.
Yeah.
Good question.
That's fine. Thank
Good
you.
question. Good answer.
Thank you.
Here's your hint. This city is also the host to the basketball franchise known as the Magic. Double K.
Orlando.
That is correct. It is Orlando. Amen. You
Hey,
will.
you're one behind. I got 6.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then that's it. That is game. If you had had 5, then that would have left A-Man 2 questions to tie, but that is not. 6 points ends it for Double K. Now the 14 time.
I said 14 times and never lost it.
It's true.
That's true. So you're still the 13 time. You're just the retaining 13
Not
time.
even 13 times. I mean, he lost 12 times.
Well, I mean,
Well, before we weren't
Jesus
given,
Christ.
we didn't have a belt that passed around for a while. We just
Had a card.
we had a card. Then we had a belt. So, anyways, Double K takes it again. Smokey Z, thanks for playing. And that's going to wrap up another
I'm gonna be good at
episode
1 point.
of Wrestle Rewind.
Mhm.
Folks, just want to let you know that there will be no episode next week for Wrestle Rewind, as next Thursday is
Oh, okay.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's
Turkey
Alright.
Day.
I was like, why? What are we
So
doing next week?
there will be no episode next
Settle
week.
down.
We will take a week off so that our folks here at Wrestle Rewind can spend time with our family and loved ones. And then we will come back to you the first week of December, where in a special announcement every week in the month of December, our show will be themed around a specific theme in an effort to try to shake things up a bit.
Is one of those going to be greatest Wrestle Rewind trivia champion ever?
No.
Oh, okay.
However, I will go ahead and tell you now.
Do I get a Hall of Fame ring?
That the first episode in December, so 2 weeks from tonight, Wrestle Rewind, when it airs, will be the Wrestle Rewind Draft Edition, where each one of your hosts here, myself, A-Man, Double K, Smokey Z, will draft our 3 top tag teams of all time, which will then be posted on our Wrestle Rewind Facebook page for our listeners and viewers to vote on as to which one of us had the best draft for the greatest tag teams of all time.
Yeah, I already know one that I'm taking.
So keep in mind that I will.
Yeah, I mean, I can come up with 3.
There are no limits to the greatest tag teams of all time from any wrestling promotion.
Oh, okay.
From any wrestling promotion. However, this group needs to understand that it's the draft, which means once that tag team has been chosen, it is no longer available for someone else to draft.
Okay. Well, they all ended up in the WWE Hall of Fame anyway,
So that will be our episode 2 weeks from tonight, Wrestle Rewind Draft Edition, and that will be tag teams. However, each week in December will feature a different draft of a different sort. And at the end of the month, there will be a prize given.
I had a question, but then I answered it.
There will be a prize given to one of the 4 of us who has the most fan votes at the end of the month.
Okay.
So a little bit of a different idea for December, but we're going to add that into the mix so that we can try to get a little bit more fan involvement in what we're doing. And so again, 2 weeks from, no episode next week, 2 weeks from tonight, we will do the Tag Team Draft Edition for Wrestle Rewind. Greatest tag teams of all time, top 3. And then the fans get to vote as to which one of us is correct. So that poll will be posted publicly on Facebook.
So indies
does not matter. Greatest 3 tag teams of all time. So I've got some ideas for the other 3 weeks, but I'm going to hold those because I don't want to spoil them. But 2 weeks from tonight, Tag Team Draft Edition here on Wrestle Rewind, live at 8:30 p.m. Enjoy your holiday next week, folks. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. From all of us here at Wrestle Rewind, we thank you for taking the time to both watch and listen, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, 8:30 p.m., Thursday night, for Wrestle Rewind.